The first thing is, this is the question that people ask in Alberta and Saskatchewan and Newfoundland. And it's a perfectly sensible question, right? They should ask it because they are producing a lot of oil and gas in these three provinces. But it's interesting that this can end up being, or I think so far has been, an obstacle to making progress here, because when you look at the emissions that come from a barrel of oil, roughly 80% of the emissions come from the consumption of the oil when it's burned to produce energy, typically, and 20% come from the production of the oil. It's a little bit different depending on whether it's conventional oil and gas or oil sands, but it's basically 20-80. And what that tells me is that, you know, if you want to think about a carbon pricing policy, you probably want to focus it on the consumption of the oil and gas, because that's where the action is. But then you say, so well, if we actually introduce carbon pricing, let's suppose we introduce carbon pricing at BC's current level. So BC has a $30 per ton carbon tax. You introduce the same tax in Alberta. That would obviously have, it would raise the price of carbon fuels and things that come from that. And it would produce all of the appropriate incentives to consume less. But it wouldn't let producers, of course, off the hook, because producers of oil and gas are also consuming oil and gas in their production process. And they are emitting about 13%, latest numbers, about 13% of Alberta's GHG emissions are coming from the production of oil and gas, a little bit more from upgrading and refining. A $30 per ton tax, according to Professor Andrew Leach at U of Alberta Business School, a $30 per ton tax would reduce cash flow in the oil and gas sector by about $3 a barrel, half of which would be reduced revenue to the provincial government because of the operation of the royalty system. So in fact, a $30 per ton tax would reduce free cash flow, after-tax cash flow if you like, in the oil patch by about $1.50 a barrel, $1.50 a barrel.